Irreverent, entertaining, cool. You're listening to LA Talk Radio.
You're listening to What Women Want with Judy Goss and Kristen West, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to What Women Want Talk Radio. Thank you for joining us for our show tonight. Engagement isn't just for marriage. My co-host Kristen West and I are the perfect example of that because we engage our listeners every week. Me all the way from New York and my co-host Kristen in our beautiful studio at LA Talk Radio. Kristen, let's get engaged. I feel like our relationship should be solidified.
I know. I feel that deep in my heart, too.
That's not the engagement I'm talking about. It's about audience engagement, one-on-one, you know, that type of thing, social media, all the things we use to build our brands, our businesses, our social media following, all that stuff. Our guests are going to fill us in on that in just a few minutes. And speaking of following, we want to thank all of you for listening out there. What Women Want Talk Radio has reached over 1,250,000 downloads since we first hit the airwaves. And between latalkradio.com's archives, iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, and all over social media, you can find us everywhere. So listen to those replays, and we are also taking sponsors for our show for the next few months. Email us for a complete deck through our website, whatwomenwantradio.com. Now, Kristen, I keep hearing that engagement word. It's so important these days. It's not a diamond ring, but I suppose it's still important. Keeping people engaged is really the key in this digital world that we've entered into. I mean, you and I can't even see each other right now, and we still have you engaged, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing. I mean, you have to really, not only do you have to reach your audience, your market, your customer, you have to provide value so much that they keep wanting to find you and reconnect with you. And it's a challenge at every single level of business, whether you're a small business owner, you're a solopreneur, or, you know, you're someone like Katherine Morales, who's done this for large brands. I mean, it's a big endeavor to remain engaging and to keep on engaging people, and not just their minds, but their hearts as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you want to reel them in, but you after you grab their attention and get their loyalty, you want to keep them there. And that's really, I think, a mystery to a lot of people, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, people, you know, it's a mystery when there are books and articles and just a plethora of how-tos about it, and still nobody seems to know how to do it.
You've got 6 seconds. Engage me.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling. I was told by someone who works at a creative ad agency the other day that the engagement for commercials now is 6 seconds. That they have, you know, we used to have 30-second or 60-second commercials. Now we have 6-second ones. And she's like, how are you supposed to engage someone in 6 seconds?
You know, short-form content is king now, and you really have to grab someone's attention immediately. And it's a challenge for everyone at every level. I know as a filmmaker, it's a challenge for me as a filmmaker. And I mean, you have to wonder if that's the case, too, with just, you know, if that's changing the way we relate to other people. Like when we go to conferences or mixers, do we really only have 6 seconds to make a first impression?
Yeah, I'm hoping that's online.
Right.
That when you meet someone, the decision's not made in 6 seconds. But our experts are going to tell us more. Katherine Marshall from Simple Fat Burn, and Katherine, we have two Katherines on the line today. Katherine Morales from Inflection Point Communications, LLC. My background originally comes from high fashion modeling with Ford New York, and after that I experienced the other side of the camera and became a magazine editor and then an author with St. Martin's Press, which eventually led me to hosting and reporting regularly for Better TV, City Buzz, and all the TV networks around the country, both regional and national. I'm currently the host of AWE's Behind the Gates, as well as a regular contributor on NBC and Fox. And I'm also a mom of twin teenage girls and an entrepreneur. Also, I founded the company What Women Want Networking almost 8 years ago now. Wow, my gosh. And now created What Women Want National Conference. And we're about to kick off our second year of having this conference in only 9 days. I can't believe it. October 19th is the day. I feel like I'm getting married or something at the Hyatt Regency in Atlanta, Georgia. And the theme is Go Big, because we're not going home. You know that saying, go big or go home? Mm-hmm. I'm not going home. As a matter of fact, both of our guests this evening are going even bigger, and they will be speaking and teaching for us at this 3-day spectacular, which, you know, is going to transform a lot of lives in that room. I'm going to say every single one, because I feel like, you know, when we have smaller events at our regional chapters, we seem to really have life-changing experiences. And with an event like this, a national conference, it's going to be just absolutely incredible. So the publisher of Chicken Soup for the Soul is going to kick everything off Friday evening, October 19th. So if you don't have your pass yet, you better get one quick. We're down to only 38 seats left. Yay! That are left in the space that we have at the Hyatt Regency. I just had a whole big conference call about that today with the hotel. So go to whatwomenwantconf.com. It's whatwomenwantconf.com to register before it's too late, because there's only less than 9 days left. Kristen will be there. I can't wait to see you again, Kristen. I'm tired of not seeing you all the time.
I know. I am so excited. And when you said it was only 9 days, I went, oh, crap. I've got to get a hair appointment.
You better book your ticket.
No, I booked my ticket, but I was like, damn, I'm going to have to get my hair appointment.
Oh, yeah, that.
You know? Wow.
Well, I'm also excited to be with you on stage for our preview of the What Women Want TV show. And that's currently in the making. So that's an exciting opportunity there for everyone who listens to us on the radio. We're heading towards TV. It's incredibly exciting. It's going to be put in the lineup soon with Kristen, all of your other award-winning shows. Let everyone know what's going on with you out there in Hollywood.
It is exciting. You know, it's October. It's my manic month in October, because it is the prime time of the horror film season. So on the
you're not going to come dressed up at the conference, are you?
No. No scarier than usual. On the 12th, on horrornews.net, I will be releasing the first episode, the premiere episode of Season 2 of Horror Talk with Kristen West, and we have Dee Wallace on our show for the premiere of Season 2. You may know Dee Wallace. She was the mom on E.T. She was the star of Cujo. She's currently starring in Rob Zombie's 3 from Hell, and she has over 200 film and TV credits, and she sat down with me at Hollywood Horror Fest about a month ago, and we have all of her updates. That's going to be the first episode of Season 2 of Horror Talk with Kristen West on horrornews.net on the 12th. So be checking that out. I'll be posting it up for sure. And then later this month, I'm going to the Fantastic Horror Film Festival in San Diego, days after the conference, Judy. And I'm actually going to be doing a live audience version of Horror Talk with Kristen West from the Fantastic Horror Film Festival. And my first confirmed interview for that is Scream Queen and cult film star Camille Keaton, who's a fascinating interview. So I'm excited about that. And a few other things. The Spirit Room is just played at the Glendale International Film Festival and is on its way to the Fantastic Horror Film Festival. And it's really exciting because I'm nominated for Best Supporting Actress in a Short at the Fantastic Horror Film Festival. And Horror Talk with Kristen West will be playing the first week of November at the Baltimore Next Media Web Fest. So,
geez, how do you keep track of all this? I'm so proud of you. Congratulations.
Thank you. I have a lot of help. And I have a lot of help.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And we're on stages and red carpets and in front of the TV cameras, and it's just incredible, everything that you're doing. So good for you. I can't wait to be with you again on stage in person. It's engaging indeed. Yes. I'm not letting go of this one tonight. Katherine Marshall is one of the greatest engagers I've ever met. She's actually the definition, for me, of an entrepreneurial influencer. She is the CEO of Simple Fat Burn, and with 22 years experience in the fitness industry, although she looks like she's 16, so I don't know how that happens, she's an author, speaker, and coach who teaches her clients to get fit fast and make it last. She's also the national director for What Women Want Networking. Welcome back to the show, Katherine.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here again, Judy. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, it's always such a pleasure to have you on the show. And thank you for being a sponsor of the conference. And of course, National Director for What Women Want Networking. I hear you have a few projects in the works that are going to light up very soon, possibly at the conference. And I can't wait for you to talk about how we can have, what do you say, more energy, more time, and more stamina.
And get that workout in. I mean,
and get the workout in.
Right. Busy. Get the workout
I purposely forgot that one. And it's just, and it's fascinating how you can, train people how to do that and to have more time, energy, and get that workout in. And it's really important. Well, I'll never forget actually the first time that we met. You sat down right next to me and you basically had me at hello. And I was just pulled in by your energy. And we're talking about being engaging this evening. And what's your secret?
Oh, gosh. Engagement to me, it's really about being fully present with people and just really, it's almost like getting in their space and understanding where they are, what's important to them, and having a conversation that is meaningful. So you're right. I remember the first time we met. I remember a lot about that conversation, Judy, because we were truly communicating on a very high level. And it was the first time we met, but I was intrigued by you. I wanted to know more about the organization. I was very new to What Women Want. But, people will remember a great conversation.
Yeah, I don't just remember the conversation, though. I remember the way you sat down next to me, and you really did, take me in as far as your attention. And I think that's so hard to do today with the phones going off and everything that's around us that's distracting. How can we kind of focus in when we see someone and not think about, oh my gosh, I wonder if my kid's texting me or if my boss is calling me or that type of thing. How can you set that aside and really focus in on, who you're supposed to be speaking to?
Well, I'll tell you, the secret really is it's empathy. It's really listening to that person, finding out about them, and taking a genuine interest in what's important to them. And it's almost like you're taking bullet point notes when you're talking to them because you're going to remember what's important. You're going to kind of hold this space for them that says that you're very important to me. You really do have to tune out the text messages that might be rolling in and the emails that you didn't get to. And I think, in this time where we're moving so quickly and people are overwhelmed by life and business and responsibilities, we've got to just take this little slice of space and truly be with a person and say, you are important to me right now.
Kristin, you're another one that I feel like, when you're talking to me, you are really concentrating on me, unless you just have the gift of doing that. But I don't think so. I think you really, you really do care and you listen to people. That's a big part of it too, listening.
Yeah, and I think well, thank you. I'm glad that you feel that way.
You make me feel that way, honey.
I think it's something that it's a gift, but I think some people naturally have it. I can think of a laundry list of people in my head that have that gift. And then you can also be taught, and I think one of our failures in society is we're not teaching social skills like we used to. It's like, limit your phone time, manners, put the phone down, things like that. I think basic communication skills are somehow being lost. Katherine, I
feel like it's like a limb now, the phone almost.
Yeah, it's an appendage. I mean, and I freak out when when my phone's not in eyesight or I lose track of my phone. But, Katherine, I have to say, when you talked about those mental bullet points, what are key things that you pay attention to when you're listening to someone?
Well, I'll tell you, I usually listen for what's important to them. Is it their family? Is there an issue that's on their mind? Are they growing in some way personally or professionally? So I'm really listening for where the emotional charge is with someone. And if you pay attention, that's pretty easy to assess. This is what I call it. When you're talking to someone, you can very, very quickly build what I call depth of relationship by truly listening for the emotions. It's kind of like what I call listening between the words. And this is a skill that I really believe most people can cultivate over time.
I love that listening between the words because as actors, we're taught to do that and we're taught to create that. And sometimes a person, I know, Judy, you've probably experienced this, and Katherine, I'm sure you've experienced this, where a person, you'll say, hi, how are you today? And a person will just say, hi, how are you? But the subtext of that, the listening between the words, as Katherine would say, is, I feel like shit. You know?
Or it's, I don't really want to know how you are, just say good so I can back off.
Right. Katherine, what's the most surprising thing that you've discovered in this listening between the words? What have you discovered about people, or can you provide an example or something that maybe surprised you?
Well, I will tell you, when I'm with people, I really believe that everything about them is speaking. Their gestures, their facial expressions, the tone, the inflection. You know, I think if you really start to pay attention, you can read somebody pretty well, and everything is really speaking. So it's almost like you're tuning into those sixth sense, and you can get to know somebody in a very short conversation when you're really paying attention, and they will truly tell you who they are, what their belief systems are, and what's important to them in a very short time if you're really paying attention. I think that always astounds me what they will actually tell you.
So, Katherine, you know, you train, so this is Katherine Marshall. I just want to preface this that we're still speaking to, founder of Simple Fat Burn. And basically, you teach people how to have an ongoing relationship with themselves and their way of eating and all that, right? How do you keep that ongoing? How do you teach them to be loyal to the way that they're treating themselves and their bodies?
Yeah, that's a really good question because, you know, if you're working with people in this capacity, and I'm trained originally as a mental health professional, you really need to build rapport. You've got to build rapport. You've got to build this relationship where you've got these ideas and feelings that are going back and forth, and you're communicating very, very well because it really, truly is about the working relationship. And it's true in networking. It's true in friendships. It's true in business. You know, you've got to get to where, you know, you've got some sense of how people are going to act, how they're going to respond, and it has to be somewhat predictable. No one likes that unpredictable person who, you know, one day they show up and you know what to expect, and the next day they kind of bite you in the ankle. You know, not cool at all. But, you know, you're really building this relationship so that it's trust. It really boils down to trust, and these feelings go back and forth, and we all know what to expect in a positive working relationship.
Now,
what about, I want to know about online. Kristen, did you have another question?
Go ahead and go to online, because I'm curious about that too, because sometimes there's a tendency, there's a tendency towards a distance between who we are and how we present ourselves online, and I would love to know Katherine's thoughts on that.
Oh, gosh, that's a great question because I think you can build relationships online very quickly. I have met so many people on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram, and I've met them, and actually they become clients or friends or business associates, and it is really about engagement. It's about having like these little mini conversations where you're just genuinely interested in them. You know, it's like saying, oh, my gosh, I can't believe that your daughter's graduating from high school, and you look amazing, and that color is fabulous on you. And it's about this positive communication, but when it's genuine and authentic, people feel it. They know it. So it is so important to respond and comment and write a little sentence or two. Oh, my gosh, it does not take very long to do this, but very few people actually do it.
It is true. And I'm wondering, I mean, is the goal of engagement always sales, or are there other goals? Is it more of just building the relationship and hoping that maybe a sale will come through over time, or is engagement more sales based?
No, I think engagement is about the person, and I think it has to be authentic. You know, I heard someone once say, you know, I'm doing birthdays now. I'm responding to birthdays. There's a difference between just saying happy birthday and really, you know, putting these heartfelt messages that are really like, oh, no, it's important to me to do birthdays because I really just like people and I really care about people. Now, you've got the introvert who is not a people person. You know, maybe their way is going to be something a different way. But if you're talking about authentic engagement, you have to just generally care about people for people and express it.
What if there's somebody that you don't really care about and you have to work with them and, you know, deal with them? How do you get around that? I mean, you talk about being authentic and really care for them, but sometimes you got to, force yourself, right, to care for someone, or how do you deal with that?
Oh, gosh, you do. And I'll tell you, when difficult people show up in the workplace, I always go back to saying, you know what, if they're acting out in anger, if they're making rude comments or whatever it is that you don't like about that personality, it's coming from ego. And I always try to remember, you don't know what that person is dealing with behind the scenes. And I try to just, almost
so it comes back to compassion, empathy.
Yeah, it does. It comes back to just maybe let it go and focus on getting the job done. And maybe that's a person that you just don't want to tangle with much.
Yeah. So sidestep around them and be nice.
Yeah, just tread lightly, because there's probably a whole lot more going on behind the scenes that is not pretty if someone's acting out. It's just like little kids.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we all have so much going on, and sometimes I guess just leaving someone be, if your personalities don't mix, then that might be the better strategy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I have a question, because obviously communication isn't just me to you and me to you and me to you. There's also a feedback loop that hopefully goes on where you engage with your audience and your audience engages back. So I'm curious to know, Katherine, what you have learned through the feedback you get from engaging your audience. Has there been anything particularly valuable or instructive that you've learned?
Well, I will tell you, your feedback will tell you a lot. I met with 3 individuals and a group yesterday. And when I left those 3 separate conversations, both parties left with incredible value, a very high, happy feeling of, wow, we really helped each other in some capacity. 2 of the women sent me glowing text messages. One said, I can't believe the insight that you gave me about my business. And, I got thinking about this with our topic today. I was speaking to a group of about a dozen women last night, and I've been talking for a few minutes, and I looked around the room, and the women were in this U shape in a table. Every single person was leaning forward in the same position. I thought, wow. But I gave them some tips and some things that I thought would really help them in their business. And I was very serious about it. I said, if you're coming to this event, I want you to go out with some crazy good value, and I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to do to capitalize on the time that you've spent here. So they were very interested. They were extremely engaged, and their body language told me that they were getting what they showed up for.
And
you have to read the body language, for sure.
Body language is important. And I think one thing, sometimes we fall in the trap, Katherine, and I'm sure Judy's had this training. I know I've had this training, but not everybody has this training if you're not in a communications or arts-related profession, is that I'm very aware of my body language. I'm sure you are too, Judy, and being a model, a lot of modeling.
Too aware, yeah.
Yeah, you're super aware. But how do you communicate better using body language? Is there a posture that you assume, Katherine? I know they say don't cross your arms, don't hunch your shoulders.
Yeah, that's a good question. You actually, the person, if you're talking to an individual person and you're starting the conversation, you want to mirror their body language, and then you want to kind of open up as the conversation opens up.
Oh, mirror it. Listen to that. That's interesting.
You start out mirroring, and then as the conversation unfolds, you kind of gradually open up and watch. They will too. It is an amazing process. So that's a great question, Kristen.
They even say with your feet, like you should put your feet kind of spread out at the point. It's funny because I looked at people's postures when they're at, for example, networking events is a perfect example, right? And if someone has one of their legs out to the side, it means they really kind of want to go away from you. They want to start walking away, or they're going to start walking towards the door. So yeah, I think engagement, a big part of having that engagement is making sure you read their physicalities too.
Yes, and I think as you're talking with someone, whether it's an individual or a group, you want to kind of bring the energy up throughout the conversation. And, you want to keep it positive. You want to keep the comments and the ideas flowing back and forth so that person is really getting value. And it really is about over-delivering with value and listening and hearing someone and validating them. Because, Kristen, you alluded to this in your introduction. You want to leave them wanting more.
Yes. And I think that's one of the things that and also not overloading people with information. If you've ever been to one of these nightmare mixers, hi, my name is so-and-so, and I've been in this business for 87 years, and blah, 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 blah. And you hear this whole monologue that Shakespeare himself would have just ripped his hair out. And there's this point where you have to be aware of your oversharing.
Breathe. Yes.
Yeah, breathe. Yep. And it's like, it's almost scripted. It's
like, and then quick and to the point.
Yeah, and it's like, and then you like take breath, and then it's like, and what about you? I don't know. I'm exhausted.
Well, it's always such a pleasure to have you on the show, Katherine. You have such great perspectives for everything, and you always, get us to see the fresh and new way of looking at things. So thank you so much. And again, thank you for supporting What Women Want Networking in every way at the conference, being national director, being the perimeter regional director, and, just everything you do with your company, Simple Fat Burn. It's growing like crazy. I'm so proud of you and just so excited to be, a part of your life, honestly, whether it's business or personal or whatever. Am I engaging you really well?
You are. You're stuck with me. I tell you that all the time.
But I really admire you, and I appreciate, again, all of your support and coming on the show, too. And let us know where we can find out about you, how we can get a hold of you, follow you, all that good stuff.
Absolutely. Please find me at simplefatburn.com. That's my website. And on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. So you can find me on all of those social media sites regularly. I'm happy to connect and engage with anyone with questions, comments, and just maybe a happy high five. And I cannot wait to see everyone at the conference in 9 days.
Woohoo! Love it.
That's right. In 9 days, you too, ladies, will be able to mirror Katherine Marshall.
You better have that ticket booked, Kristen.
I will. And now we have another wonderful Katherine in our parade of amazing Katherines tonight. We have Katherine Morales, APR. She's an award-winning accredited PR and marketing consultant and founder of Inflection Point Communications. She's worked with big brands like Chik-fil-a, HP, and Bayer Crop Science. And now she's helping entrepreneurs connect authentically with customers and grow their businesses to reach their inflection point. Welcome, Katherine.
Hi, thank you both so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be on the channel and just loved listening to Katherine Marshall as well. I'm going to be more self-conscious talking to her now, like looking like, is she mirroring me?
Yeah, right, what your positions are, what you're saying, what you're doing.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you.
I had no idea.
Well, Big sister's watching.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can tell you Katherine Marshall is one of the most affable people I've ever met, and you will not, she's charming and disarming, so you will probably not feel that way, especially if you're engaging each other well. Bum. Anyway,
no, I know. We had a lunch together in Atlanta, and I was just reflecting on that, going, was she mirroring me at that lunch?
That's funny. Well, Katherine, I wanted to ask you, we've kind of brought it down to the level of personal and what we do when we're in person with other people, but many people and a substantial amount of communication is not done person to person. It's brands to their customers, which you're a specialist at. So I wanted to ask you what your definition of engagement is.
Well, it's so interesting to listen to Katherine Marshall talk about the person-to-person because I feel like, I work now, so I've worked at the big brands and now I focus on working with smaller businesses and entrepreneurs. And I feel like one of the reasons I was drawn to do that was because I saw the struggle for a lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners, thinking it was more complicated than it really was. I at the conference, I'll be talking about the big brand's marketing secret, and I simplistically say, get curious. So I think there are several steps before you can even come to engagement, but I would agree that, so I say there's 4 points. It's story, message, channel, and audience. And I think that you really don't get to engagement until you're stepping out onto the stage. Which channels are you showing up on? I talked about showing up online or showing up in person. And But the biggest thing, it's interesting, Katherine Marshall talked about, you all mentioned attention, and I talk quite a bit about intention. So I say it's intentional marketing actions, and that's rooted in an understanding and insights of not just who your audience is, but who your brand is. I love this topic for the show today because I think that I actually immediately thought of what does it take to find that right person that you settle down with. And, a lot of times you see single people searching so hard for that person. I liken that to like businesses searching so hard for that right customer.
Right.
But it's so important to know thyself before you can find the right person. And it's so much the same for businesses.
It's interesting. It's kind of like matchmaking. I love it. So I'm interested because, I love what you've talked about the channel, the message, the audience, and attention versus intention. Now, I can open my Instagram right now, or I can open Facebook Analytics right now, and it can tell me the engagement of my posts. That's common social media analytics today. But how do you measure engagement, or is there a best practices? Is it in measuring engagement? Is it comments? Is it likes, or is this largely intangible? How do we measure engagement successfully? Well,
these days, that's such a great question. These days, it's not any one metric, and so much of it happens offline. It's interesting when I worked with a lot of these big brands, I was, reflecting on what I could share about, the takeaways. And, when I worked with Bayer Crop Science, there was a certain amount of online, of course, and with media outlets and outreach, but I was flying out to California and I was on the farms with the pistachio farmers. We went to these big brands, they go to your people. Mm-hmm. It's interesting that, just so many similarities to that one-to-one that Katherine Marshall talked about, because that feedback loop is never stronger when you're actually connecting directly with your customer. So the challenge for the big brands is that it's harder and harder to do. And the way that they do that is, focusing on, key markets and smaller groups, but they still are getting very personal in their connection. But there are, in terms of engagement online, I do think that, engagement metrics that a lot of these social platforms have are really, really helpful, and they can tell you a lot. But I think also it's essential that all these social channels are ultimately going back to your website. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of small business owners especially overlook the simplicity of Google Analytics and seeing who's coming to my website, where are they coming from, how long are they staying on my site, what are they paying attention to, because that can tell you so much about what you should be doing from a marketing perspective and what you are doing, whether it is or is not effective.
It's interesting.
So
Go ahead, Judy. No, go ahead, Judy.
I'm just thinking, so the big brands aren't reaching their audience enough in person, most likely, and the smaller businesses are maybe reaching too small of an audience. So how do the smaller businesses, without funding and all of the advantages that the larger corporations have, take their personal engagements and relationships and expand them without, losing that authenticity of a smaller, kind of more family-like feel?
Yeah, I think that smaller businesses, I think there's just this big misconception out there that marketing should cost a lot of money or else it's not good. Certainly I had my days of working with really big budgets, but that's one of my mantras that I share with business owners is that, your work, I want to say, let's work smarter, not harder, and let's save time and money when it comes to your marketing. So I think that one of the most essential ways, I actually talk about intersections with my clients. So I say that, there are ideal times and places that you can show up where your ideal customer is going to be ready to buy. But we're just overlooking it. And that's when I talk about why I talk about intention, because I find so much that small business owners just get in the habit of going to networking events, but they're overlooking the opportunity sometimes that is right in their face. So I think it's about setting intention when you do show up somewhere to not just listen for the immediate sale of who could be a client or customer, but to listen for, someone that could be a partner for you, someone that could be in a referral network for you. I think that's what's essential for building that groundswell as you are a startup or an early company. And, you don't have big dollars. But honestly, that I see so much, so interesting. I see so much that bigger companies are really trying to emulate what these startups are doing. And the startup companies are trying to be like the big brands. So it's a really interesting predicament.
That's a good point because it could be right. That's a good point because it could be really one-dimensional as you're growing your brand and your business. If you don't go in there and like Katherine Marshall said, find that empathy and find their pain points. I know you're always talking about the pain points that people have and messaging and all that. Messaging is a big part of it too. Can you explain how all that works?
Oh yeah, thank you for asking that. Early on in my career, we always talked about key messaging, and especially PR professionals like to build key messaging. And what I talk more about now is magnetic messaging. I know some people use that too, and I'm not talking about the little magnets you stick on your refrigerator. But so I mentioned story and message. And so to create magnetic messaging, it's the kind of message that you deliver as a business owner that is, first of all, authentic because it's rooted in your story and what's unique about your business and brand. But the other part that's so essential to make it really attract that ideal client or customer is that it's also an understanding of their story. So, I say simplistically that people shop based on a need or want. That's very simple. But there are specific moments, and as you mentioned, Judy, pain point is one of them. I injured myself, I'm going to the doctor. That's a literal pain point, right? That's pretty straightforward. But there's milestones too, understanding, when someone might be shopping or more prone to shopping. So did they just get married? Or, it's different for every business. And then moments where that's perhaps a briefer event or instance, but it's very distinguishable by certain factors. So those are the 3 points that I call the powerful points that a lot of business owners overlook. Mm-hmm. But if we get curious about, who is my customer and what is their experience? Why should they care about, my business? Because there's a lot of businesses out there and there's a lot of noise and it gets harder and harder. So to really build engagement, a magnetic message is the kind of message that when you say it to that prospect or that person that is your ideal customer or client, it's just like a spark in their eyes because they feel heard. And that's what's really essential. Years ago, Scientific American magazine put out an article that said everyone's favorite topic is themselves.
Oh my gosh. And they weren't even in Hollywood.
Yeah, I know. It's interesting because it said people spend 60% of the time in conversations talking about themselves. And when you go online, that number goes up to 80% on social media.
That's crazy.
So it's so essential to reflect your customers and their experience in your brand to help connect them.
So we're talking about messaging, and we're talking about, to create that magnetic message. And we've also learned some depressing statistics about how self-absorbed people are. But I have
not me, never.
Bad news there.
I have to ask you, Katherine, because you have so much experience with engagement and you have so much experience with messaging. Is there no-nos? Are there things we shouldn't do for increasing engagement or things that just don't work?
Will run people off, right?
That will run people off.
That's a great question. It's interesting because I feel like it's such a fine line these days. You see every day there's like some faux pas of some big brand or somebody messing up and, crises all around. But what I find is, so for small businesses, I think one of the biggest mistakes that a small business owner makes is it's really hard to disconnect their brand from themselves. So yes, you are your brand, but, there is a time and place, especially when you're a smaller business, your political views, your religious views, unless it's a part of your brand, it's not a good idea to bring that into your, business page. So that's a big no-no. I
think it's never a good idea,
okay,
Kristen. I mean, we have friends that do it and everything, but for me, I feel like, well, I guess because of what I do, I have to stay neutral. But sometimes it's hard because I feel like I'm not really showing my feelings, right? So I feel like I'm hiding a part of myself.
Well, I have to ask you, Katherine, what do you think of the Nike ads with Colin Kaepernick? Are they, I mean, some people were burning shoes over this. Some people love them. It's a very polarizing ad.
I'm so glad you asked that. It's amazing. And I think that is such a great illustration of exactly this point. And I was going to touch on big brands. It's a calculated risk that these big brands take. But I was reading an article, and this is what I suspected, but I read this article about Nike and that whole ad, and it said that it wasn't so much of a big risk as we all thought, because they just knew their base, like know thyself and know your customer. And it said that, 18 to 34-year-olds, so pretty much their base of the athletic customers, had a 67% approval of the ad, whereas 65-plus-year-olds had a 46% disapproval. So it actually, in the end, boosted their business. So I actually did a talk back in April on reputation management in our modern age, and I had a whole, area where I talked specifically about that calculated risk, and it is totally based on knowing thy customer. Obviously more millennial-based, if your business targets more millennial-based customers, especially, this isn't to speak for smaller brands. Like I said, smaller brands should stay, pretty neutral.
Right.
But for big brands nowadays, especially millennial audiences, are wanting those big brands to take a stand, both politically and, socio-political topics. And we've seen this over and over again. And it's interesting because that's how our times have changed. It's not, it's not, in a lot of respects, we say our nation is divided. And it's not that the companies are wanting to divide any audiences, but they're seeing an opportunity to connect better with their customers, and they're standing up to do that.
So let's take I know you can't speak for Nike, and I know you weren't part of the campaign, but let's take this a step further. So you have a campaign like Nike that was highly polarizing to one set of people, and the bee's knees to another set of people. And obviously, there was as much as there was positive engagement, there was also negative engagement with the ad. Is there any way, in your experience, to take negative engagement, and Campbell's Soup had this too. I remember talking to someone on our show about Campbell's Soup, the Campbell's Soup ad. Taking the negative, is all engagement good, whether the audience is for it or not?
Oh, that's tough. I don't know. I don't even want to say a yes or no to that. I think it's all about, when I talk about intention, it's about, assessing, like constantly assessing what's working, what isn't working, and tracking. So even for smaller businesses, that online listening is so important. Like, many people don't do it until they get to be bigger brands, but there are very affordable options for small businesses. And, I think that's essential because people are out there talking. And so it doesn't matter if it's like some, millions of people or hundreds of thousands of people that are, not in favor of what your brand said, or just one angry customer. It matters, we need to be listening to the negative and positive. But, I think that these bigger brands, in some respects, yes, like it's probably, marketing or PR stunt where they are, wanting to cause controversy because controversy gets them press and gets them attention. But yeah, I think, for Nike, for Airbnb with the Super Bowl ad, I think that was last year. I think that those were definitely stands on issues that were politically charged. And I think that in both those cases, they knew their base and they were they were pleasing their base. And the
I think bigger companies can take
base was not bad.
Larger companies can take larger risks. I mean, that's all, smaller companies can't really do that. Like if I, piss off half of my audience, then, I'm not going to have as much left as Nike has. So I guess you got to weigh that also, how much of a risk really can you take? Can you afford to take if it blows up in your face?
And how proximate you are to your audience.
Marketing dollars come in. Like they can spend lots of money on the research to know how much of a risk it'll be for them.
Right.
And I would say how proximate you are to your audience. Obviously, if you are the local bakery in Poteet, Texas, and you have an ad against
Poteet, is that a real town?
That is a real town. That is where my family has lived for 100 years. It's a real town.
Nice.
And you're campaigning against the mayor or a city councilman or a ballot measure, and you take a big stand, you're more proximate to the potential angry people. But I have to.
Very true.
Let's take it down though to solopreneurs, startups, smaller businesses. We all, like Judy and I have said, and Katherine Marshall and I have talked about, we're all so busy. And sometimes we're forced to automate some of our social media activity. I know not all engagement is social media, but it is a metric. How much of our social media should we automate and not risk losing engagement?
Yeah. Well, so I think that social media it just depends on your brand. Like some brands are so social media charged. But I think a lot of businesses, like the majority, it's a small sliver of everything they're doing in the pie, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't think that, automating your social is a negative thing. I mean, there's tools and Hootsuite and different things that you can utilize to do that. I think that, spending some time on it, important thing with social is to try to make it relevant to now too. So that's the only trouble if you're like scheduling things out, a month in advance, that even if you're doing that and you're automating certain things, that if there is something timely and relevant and trending, to be responsive to that.
And I think timeliness, sometimes we have our sort of patterns, and then sometimes there's an opportunity that comes up that's just way too good. You have to be engaged and engaging with the world in order to be engaging to others. And I love that you can automate, but you still need to be timely. Now you're going to be a VIP instructor and at the conference. What can we expect from you at the conference? Tell us, give us a preview. Engage us.
Oh my goodness. Well, I don't want to give away the whole thing. No.
Just a taste.
Points. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have a lot of, I'm going to set intent to really help everyone sitting there and the VIP session to go big. I mean, that's part of my mission. I've worked with these big brands. So I want to lift the curtain and tell them exactly what it takes, that it's not this big web of confusion in marketing. It's really simple. Let's start with the simplicity and just build your business to the highest potential and the greatest growth that you want it to be. Hence, the name of my company, Inflection Point, Inflection Point Communications. That's what I want from day one of starting my business. I said, I just want to help all these budding businesses to just grow and to their fullest potential.
And Kristen,
I'm going to do the most I can in the time that I have to give them all really valuable content to walk away with and implement themselves.
Kristen, I was honored to have Katherine Morales take a deep dive into our company, and really, it's such detailed research that goes into what the company's really about and what the founder's about and the messaging and all that analytics and of the website. It's really fascinating what it takes someone like Katherine Morales to turn a company around or to really kind of guide them down the right path. It's pretty wild, actually. So I was really happy with everything that you've been doing for us, Katherine.
Oh, thank you so much for the opportunity, Judy. It was fantastic. I talked about those insights, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk with many of your directors, but also a lot of the wonderful members that are so thrilled to be a part of the What Women Want Network. I'm just thrilled to attend the conference, not just to attend, but speak. And I mean, I love the theme. It couldn't be better for, what I'm doing for myself, but what I help entrepreneurs to do every day. Like, let's go big, and let's, you don't have to be the next Chik-fil-a or Delta or want to be that, but because I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs who don't necessarily want to be that big, but you go into business. I say the day you become an entrepreneur, you choose that because you have a purpose and passion, and you have something special and different to offer.
Well,
so why would you hold yourself back from presenting that to the best person? You should find joy in your business every day.
Well, we know you have something special and different. I know many of our listeners are eager to learn more about you between now and the conference. So how can they find you online and on social media, Katherine?
And Katherine, we only have about 15 seconds.
Okay, well, I'll be short and sweet. Well, the best way is on my website, and that's www.inflectionpointcom.com. And I'm very active on LinkedIn as well, and Twitter. So those are the best ways to find me. And thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you, Katherine. And join us again next week for another great show. And remember, subscribe to us on YouTube. Don't miss one show. Go to whatwomenwantradio.com for more. And see you next week, everyone. Have a wonderful night.
You're listening to What Women Want with Judy Goss and Kristen West, only on LA Talk Radio.